Hello everyone, this is Vishwanath Yeshigiri and here I am to talk about the tragedy of the commons. First, let's start with the definition of what tragedy of the commons means. The tragedy of the commons is a situation in a shared resource system where individual users acting independently according to their own self-interest behave contrary to the common good of all users by depleting or spoiling the shared resource through their collective action. So here the operational words that are important are shared resource system acting independently according to their own self-interest and depleting or spoiling the shared resource. So like that was pretty hard. So for people who are not privy to economics, including me, what does it actually mean? Is that assume that there is only one store selling toilet paper in your entire county. Now, a global pandemic hits and the access to free toilet paper at office is now cut. That in itself is a disaster. Now, everyone rushes to this store to maximize their toilet paper supply. Few people get it, but many people don't. And now there is a huge tragedy. Now, this situation is described as the tragedy of the commons because when the pandemic hit, a lot of people you could see were trying to hoard toilet paper and other important resources for their own benefit because it was in their own self-interest, but they didn't really consider the interest of the system. Now if one person does it, it's fine, but if a group of people in a shared resource system try and maximize their own self-interest, then it leads to a situation called the tragedy of the commons. Now let's see a bit of history behind this. So this was first proposed in 1833 by an English economist William Foster Lloyd, and he published a pamphlet about overuse of a common resource. This premise was then taken forward by Garrett Hardin in 1968 in a journal article titled The Tragedy of the Commons, which later got published to Science. Now, Eleanor Ostrom in 2009 got Nobel Prize in Economics for demonstrating this concept in her book, The Governing the Commons, where it had a lot of examples of how local communities were able to do this without any top down regulation or privatization, and these communities just acted by themselves while doing it. Now, you could see that all of these are pretty much in the past, but how is this still relevant? Like, is it still relevant to this day? And yes, it is. Like, one of the examples that I showed earlier was from not even 4 or 5 months back, but there are some very crazy effects. And the first of which is about satellite constellations. So, recently we all saw that SpaceX launched Starlink satellites for faster internet access, and similar satellites have been launched by multiple organizations, including NASA, ISRO, SpaceX, and other space agencies over the years. Now, what happens is these satellites revolve around the orbit of Earth and they obstruct astronomers' view of the space. Now, these astronomers, when they are trying to observe the Earth, they sometimes can't see behind these satellites, and if they don't know if an asteroid is going to come and hit the Earth or what crazy phenomenon is happening out there. Now, there are some mitigatory steps which have been taken to alleviate this interference, but still, it's a problem which people will face in the future. Now, all of this happened because people want faster internet access, better connectivity, which is not a wrong thing to have. There are a lot of people still in underdeveloped countries without internet, but it leads to an unintended consequence of astronomers not being able to see what's happening out there. Another crazy example is that of Wikipedia and the knowledge commons. So Wikipedia, as we know, is a resource that all of us have used. It's free. Anyone can just go and browse their favorite meme or any article and read about it. Now, if the world were a large network, then there would be very few contributors and large number of consumers. Now, as you can see from the graph, the number of creators to contributors is almost 1% to creators to lurkers is almost 1% versus 99%. So very few people actually create the content that a lot of people consume. And if the number of topics keep increasing. For example, new events keep happening, new inventions keep being made, and uh, let's say new knowledge comes to the forefront every day. But if the number of contributors does not grow linearly with the new topics, then there will be a stagnation in the amount of content that's being generated. Now, another crazy thing is that of climate change. So we are all going through a phase where the climate of the earth is has been heating up for the last few decades, and this has been a chain effect which partly is due to the tragedy of the commons. For example, more fish was being fished from all of these aquifers which exist, and this overfishing leads to depletion of fishes in water bodies, spoiling the ecology of that water body. Now water is being overdrawn in a lot of places, and people tend to have wasted water all through these years, which has led to a huge reduction in the water table. Overpopulation due to various factors has been a leading cause for increase in fossil fuel consumption and habitat destruction. Now all of these phenomenon is not something we haven't really heard of. We've been talking about it, but when you put all of this into the context of the tragedy of the commons, it's out there for everyone to see how a simple concept in economics leads to climate change. So, in conclusion, the tragedy of the commons occurs when a few entities in a network try to get hold of majority of resources without thinking about others in the ecosystem. They only care about their self-interest and what they get out of a common resource system. Now, it has far-reaching implications, as you saw, from normal cattle grazing to stargazing, where some astronomers are not even able to see what's behind all of these satellites we keep sending out. And if it's unchecked, it can actually lead to serious consequences. Thank you.